This is that. Well, this and that are the sounds of another week of comic books. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another weekly recap, recommendations. I don't know how can you call this self-indulging hour of comic books. Well, we have to talk about some, I don't know if major news, but news nonetheless. It's like there's a couple of news that I've heard that I mean I wanted to talk about this last week, but I think it came like right after I did the episode. There's a new Power Rangers book coming from Boom Studios, and they're finally just going to the original ones, and they're doing the we're getting old route. What this created in my mind, what this posture sort of it created a clash, a dissonance in my mind, because even though they have released several really serious and quote unquote adult stories for the Power Rangers during the current run of Power Rangers in Boom Studios, the fact that they never did like straight up the original ones like a sequel, they always branch it out to different parts of the morphing grid, different characters whatsoever, and like it was always aiming to be big. And this sort of has I don't wanna be negative and just go like, oh, it's gonna be bad, but there are only so many ways this can go. And in the end, the one thing that makes me think, well, I talked about it long time ago, one of my first episodes in my other quote unquote show was about the latest Power Ranger movies. This is like 2000, I don't know, and how that was an interesting reinvention of the Power Rangers. And if you grew up the franchise into more fantasy, like what they have done with it in the other books, yeah, that makes sense. But going back to the original ones and just making them old, I don't know. You know, that's where you clash between curiosity and just morbid curiosity. I think that is the way of saying it. The other piece of news that it was revealed this week is that Wonder Man is gonna get a second season. Wonder Man, of course, the live-action series based on the character at Marvel that was critically acclaimed as well. I had my own comments on it. I made a whole episode about it. And here's the thing: the whole Wonder Man thing in general was such a funny experiment that I don't see a second season. What is it gonna be about? Are they gonna like joke again with the meta commentary on him being an actor? Like, and the other thing is, I can't see a route where he goes to be a superhero like in the Wonder Man comics or like in the Marvel comics. I don't see that route happening because he's an actor through and through. You know, how is he gonna be recruited before any of the other stuff happens? You know, I don't know. Another tidbit of curiosity for this week news. I mean, the first season was good enough for you to go like, okay, if they're gonna do a second one, yeah, I'm interested. So I'm interested. And the last piece of news, the one that hit, I don't know if the hardest, but we sort of knew it. This happened last week, and of course I didn't have time to comment on it because it happened after I did the episode. Finally, talking to a podcast, Stephanie Phillips, who is the writer of Planet She-Hulk, confirmed that what they called the Imperial line was in a way a failure. So Planet She-Hulk is getting cancelled in issue 6, so they didn't make it to 10, and that is next April. And apparently she let it know that basically Marvel pulled, what's the expression, pulled the rug from the Imperial line. and I sort of knew it. I felt it. I knew it. I knew it would happen, man, because it was really not that good overall as an event. Planet She-Hulk was one of my favorites, and I did recommend it. I didn't like how in the latest issues they came back to her relationship with what is his name, Jack of something, Jack of Spades, that weird ass character. But that this makes everything, I don't know, it's like a full circle, right? You never want people to fail or anything, but the event was mid. It wasn't that impactful, it wasn't that fun, and they didn't really explore the other all the layers that were implied in the storyline at the beginning. Nova's and Star-Lord was cut short. Now we know that She-Hulk is getting cut short as well. Whatever happened with Professor Xavier, I was so excited to see Xavier and Lilandra reunited looking for their daughter, and nothing happened with that. This is kind of like more bitter than sweet, but it feels so sad that the tie-ins and the other stories were brought down by the lack of success of the event itself. It almost makes you want or desire for, particularly for example, the story for Xavier to be their own book, like unattached to Imperial. But yeah, in the end, it happened. I mean, what happened is what I personally suspected would happen, in a sense that I was disappointed with the event, and given this news, apparently more people besides myself were pretty disappointed with it. That's sad, but She-Hulk remains one of the best characters. Compared to what the Infernal Hulk and all the success of that line is having, like, of course she's not that popular, but man, I wish they do another She-Hulk story, but with more charisma, more flair. Like the last one wasn't bad, but when they go to this aspect of the character who is more light-hearted, more about, I don't know, love interest, and behaving more like a normal person, not like a monster like the Hulk is basically doomed to do. Man, they should go more quirky, more fun, more, it's never light-hearted enough. So I don't know. Shit happens, and already did. Let's look forward to whatever She-Hulk does next. And now to this week's recommendations. Plenty more of DC stuff. We still are on the DC ride. Fortunately, I had the chance to read the last issue of DC's KO. It was an unexpected ending in a sense. They tricked you pretty well. Before the end, making it seem like Batman would come back and do some important shit. I'm not gonna spoil it, but of course we gotta mention what it's already on the news, and the fact that Superman is disappeared after DC's KO. I'm not gonna say how, so people can still go and read the story, but Superman is technically AFK, no, away from keyboard, right? AFK. But anyways, Absolute Wonder Woman, I recommended the beginning of this new story arc, mainly because I'm sort of obsessed with Absolute Satana. She looks so cool. But what they did was something that was quite unexpected and thankful in a way. What this was the creation of the magic side of the Absolute Universe. Basically, in the regular DC universe, we have so much of magic and fantasy that is like 80 years old. So you really didn't get to see the beginning of it. And magic as an argument or as an element you can use for a fictional story also grows exponentially. It's easy for you to go totally crazy with magic and like, okay, it goes there, and there, and you never know where it begins. Gladly, we can experience that in Absolute Wonder Woman. This is like a clean universe. We often forget that this is a brand new universe. It seems like only yesterday the Absolute Universe began, and since every fucking book is a masterpiece, every fucking book is so good, you forget that it's just beginning. So this is your chance to see the magic side of the world from its origin. And as I said at the beginning of this story arc, making Wonder Woman a magical based character from the beginning, unlike the main Wonder Woman, who was sort of pushed into this mystical magic side of DC. And well, when she led the Justice League Dark, it was okay, but it didn't feel like it fit her character. But here it does. They have done a great job. And of course the mystery behind Satana is pretty cool. You know, she's not entirely bad, but whenever they bring a new character into the Absolute Universe, due to the nature of the universe itself and how they have created the mysticism around it, they all come in a pretty ambiguous position. You never really know if they're good guys or bad guys, and that shit is so fun and interesting. So, man, can't recommend it enough. Next. Another Absolute title that sort of I felt like a slump in the middle. It felt like they were like cooking something for too long. Is Absolute Martian Manhunter. It was one of the more critically acclaimed ones because the concept was so interesting, right? That the Martian is living inside of John Jones' like psyche, and all the book is about that. Him solving cases while at the same time dealing with a sort of like a dementia. And it was so creative and fun how they make the alien interact with reality. It's a trip, but now we're finally promised by the press release some sort of I don't want to say objectivity, but like they're streamlining the storyline. Like we're finally gonna understand with a little bit of more ground what the hell is going on. You know, in a way, we need this for a title like Absolute Martian Manhunter if we wanted to be part of the Absolute Universe. By now, it feels like such an outlier of a book and a story, despite the fact that it's great. So, in this issue of Absolute Martian Manhunter, we are promised some semblance of why do I keep going back to objectivity? But we're gonna get a little bit of a clear of an image of what's going on. You know, hopefully that would catapult the character and the storyline more into the main Absolute Universe, because we already know that it's becoming a universe, it's becoming interconnected. And one of the things that KO did was that recognize that the Absolute Universe is a creation of like Darkseid. Basically Darkseid created this universe, is his universe, and he created it in a moment of his life, if he has life at all, because Darkseid just is a moment of his life where he was pretty vulnerable. So that revelation in this is KO 4, I think 3 or 4, is not a small thing, because now we want to root for these characters, especially the Absolute Trinity. They have already kind of like showed their independence against the wishes of their creator, Darkseid. We still haven't seen a storyline in the Absolute Universe where they treat Darkseid as the deity, as the creator. I think obviously they're gonna do it at some point, and it's gonna be really interesting. It's like, well, you want to know God, your creator? Well, here it is. There's no Big Bang, no creationism, no whatever. There he is, Darkseid. It's gonna be interesting. All of these Absolute titles, they remain like amazing. Next. So this is another one of updates on ones that I keep recommending because it's just so good. The Department of Truth ended its previous story arc. Again, I'm not gonna spoil it, but it didn't end in a way that I thought it would. It didn't kind of like rely on a main story or in the main characters. It kept going on the mysticism of the book itself, which is the creation of subjective or imaginary truth by the people in power. It kept relying on that big premise of the whole franchise, which is not bad at all. This is the core and the heart of it. As I said, in that time and in that situation, I really hoped that they would go back into a more grounded, character-based, story-based development. That's what I thought they would do. They didn't go that way, but it's not that bad. I mean, it remains such a good story and such a good kind of like proposal for developing new stories that can keep going. And in this new story arc, they are tapping into cable TV, cable TV, man. That in on itself is an old statement, or something that could date you for years and years. Cable. How is the Department of Truth gonna use cable to keep enhancing or expanding their story about media control of reality and the control of reality by the powers that be? It's an interesting enough premise for us to keep reading the Department of Truth. Eventually they're gonna go back into a main storyline, of course, into a more character-based one. I even forgot the name of the main guy for a while. The Cole. I don't remember. But yeah, this remains a good book. This is a new story, so I'm recommending it. Next, we just finished the previous Detective Comics storyline where he dealt with the new bad guy. What was his name? The Lion. And Batman was infected by the new fear virus. It was fun. As I said in one occasion, I felt the pressure and I felt sort of the COVID-like vibes it gave. I feel a little bit bad of recommending straight away the next storyline for Detective Comics, but this is not for Batman. This is for Green Arrow and and the Canary, right? I don't know why they are bringing Green Arrow to Gotham, but they are. He's like the new guy in Gotham, and Green Arrow is one of those characters that also I've never been that much of a fan of. I don't think he has that much of an original kind of like personality or setup. The only stories about Green Arrow that I like are those about his really dysfunctional family, which is what attaches him to Batman. That is the one thing they have in common, despite the fact that they're both millionaire vigilantes. The one thing that brings them together is the fact that their familiar core is dysfunctional, is found family is created, so it's kind of like always a work in progress. So when they interact, they sort of clash in that sense always. And Black Canary, she's always been one of my favorites as well, mostly when she's in a team. She's always a team leader. What was the last Black Canary book? I think it was that one where she was the lead singer for her band, right? And that book was a little bit out there as well. It wasn't that just a plain adventure. It had a lot to do with some weird shit. So we'll see what they do here together. I always love seeing these characters, and they kind of like push each other up, especially Green Arrow, that I said that I'm not that much of a fan of. And that's another piece of news. This might be as well like a jumping point or like a trampoline towards the upcoming Absolute Green Arrow. That she looks mad sick. Absolute Green Arrow, it has Black Canary is like I think she's a detective or something, and Green Arrow is a serial killer. It's like fucked up. If you guys had the chance to look for Absolute Black Canary's design, is amazing. And so is Absolute Green Arrow. They look incredible. So more of those characters to come. Bring it. Next. I did a whole episode about the Fantastic Four First Steps, and I sort of already forgot about that movie. So Dan Slott, who's doing Superman, and he did a bunch of historical Spider-Man. I think he has had the longest tenure in Spider-Man on history, if I'm not mistaken. It was a big news of him going back to Marvel, given that he is writing Superman, and he's doing a Fantastic Four. What is this? How do you call it? This is MCU kind of like. There's a code for these characters' Earth, which is not the same Earth as the regular Marvel Cinematic Universe, But fuck it. This is simple math. I like the movie. I didn't love it, but I certainly would like to see more of them. And since you will have to wait till fucking November to see them again, I guess you can make do with a little tiny comic to keep you entertained for a while. I'm not even sure if it's in the past or it's in the future, after, before the movie. I don't care. I don't know, and I don't care. I just want to see more of them. I don't know why they don't do that. They should try to cover these empty spaces with more comics about them. If the movie is successful, it has never, like, I never understood why they don't release more comics. Why don't they exploit these characters more? How come you gotta watch First Steps? Right? Was it Fantastic Four? Yeah, and then you gotta wait a year before you see them again? This fucked up, man. So, Fantastic Four First Foes. I guess we're gonna talk about the first foes. If you guys remember, in the movie, they just defeated everyone already. That's like funny. Like, whichever bad guy you think in the Fantastic Four, we already defeated them. Ho ho. So, more Fantastic Four from this universe, which is, I don't even know which universe it is, but it's not technically the same as the MCU, but they are part of the MCU. Wow, comic shit. Next, Fantastic Four. It's great what Ryan North did with this storyline. Basically, as I said at some point, this seemed to be the first kind of like more longer story arc. By now, the Fantastic Four, the current run, has been mostly loose stories, tiny stories. They've all kept the charisma of the team. They have been fantastic, no pun intended. A lot of fantasy, be it time travel, whatever. But this is personal. Invincible Woman is about them finding a different version of Sue, who sort of grew through the timeline of she being Malice, the bad Sue Storm. So the concept is really basic, but as I said, since this run has been mostly loose stories, it's great to see one that is so deeply personal and sort of involves more of them, more of them together, coming together again in a fantastic setting, but highly personal and a little bit more longer duration. I always love Sue's personal stories, even though she's pretty strong and she's really important and she's no pushover. I feel like whenever a big Fantastic Four story comes, she never feels that important. Even though the last one was when they were lost in time, it also went through by her. But anyways, this story arc, Invincible Woman, has been super fun. Look at that art. That's Humberto Ramos, right? Look at that. It's been I don't want to say fantastic. It's been amazing. So super interesting, and gotta keep reading it. And well, it's a Fantastic Four. Next. Also, again, been updating and talking about Green Lantern for the past year so much, but you gotta do it again in this landmark 600th issue. I think they are gonna use this as a platform to straighten up all the current storylines in the Green Lanterns, among the whole Green Lanterns books, the Carlz, and Hal Jordan, he was doing something for his side, and it was in kind of like a transition space, maybe except not Hal. Hal was already going somewhere, but they're gonna use this to branch it out, put it all together and say you're going there, you're going there, you're going there. And the best thing is they promise suit redesigns by David Nakayama. It was so funny to read that. Don't miss the new suit by David Nakayama. But I've been enjoying Hal Jordan, even though he's not my favorite. But the fact that this story arc is called The Rise of Kyle Rayner. Kyle, you pronounce that? Rayner, right? Kyle Rayner. It's super interesting. It's no small thing to like recommend a book only because you are curious for the new suits. Is that bad? No, right? It's not bad. It's like being a kid. Like you're watching, Transformers or something, and the new potential toy is coming up. So even though I'm already reading Green Lantern, I'm already hooked, I'm already following those characters, they go like, yeah, new suits. You're like, hell yeah. Hell fucking yeah, new suits. Give it to me. Oversized 600th issue of Green Lantern. Next. So I'm using Harley Quinn to talk about Poison Ivy. I've mentioned more than once that I think this is Sue Storm and Reed Richards. This is royal family, like that's the power couple. The last story arc for Harley Quinn was really Poison Ivy free. I don't think they have said it explicitly, but by now it's quite clear that they are in a polyamorous situation. You always go back to each other, but Poison Ivy has had like sexual relations and emotional relationships with the assistant. What's her name? I always keep forgetting. Karen. She has like that was like the joke, right? Like she's the girl from HR. Like it's a random girl. And Harley also had a thing with the villain she fought in the past story arc. But in the last issue of Poison Ivy, when they skipped the whole how she became mayor, she's already mayor for some reason, and it hasn't been reflected in any of the other books. So this is potential to be like an illusion or something. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, by the end of that, she says, I lost Harley. And if they are to be as interconnected as I want them to be, they're probably gonna reference that in this upcoming Harley Quinn. If Poison Ivy says she lost Harley, I guess Harley needs to recognize she lost Ivy. That wasn't me crying. That was kind of like something got on my throat. So this is a new story arc for Harley Quinn, a character that, as I said plenty of times, I've never really seen her going to, like, she doesn't have a north to me. She keeps jumping from story. I miss her when she lived in New Jersey. I just miss it. Because it had a storyline, it had like a plot, it was going somewhere. Now they're just like individual stories of her being crazy and I don't see any growth or any kind of like development. It's just Harley being funny and crazy and whatever. But yeah, this is a new story arc, so there is a chance to see more of that, to see more of a development in Harley, and hopefully it will go back to her relationship with Ivy. If not, we just need to wait for the next season of the fucking animated show, which I like pretty much. I like it a lot, actually. We'll see what happens. You know, new story arcs, chances for new stuff next. As part of the big fallout of This Is KO, of course, the Justice League is one of the big ones. The whole premise of this one, I just read the blip of it. So Superman, as I said, is gone. Nobody knows exactly how or where or for how long. If you read This Is KO issue 5, you will have an idea. But now they're kind of like, the whole premise of this story arc is who's gonna complete the Trinity. And hearing the amazing cover by Dan Mora, like it's a Dan Mora through and through. You see fucking Lex Luthor standing in the middle. Lex Luthor had a big part in the ending of This Is KO, but there's something really funny happened, because they were not necessarily pushing him as a good guy, but the reformed Lex Luthor was the Lex Luthor we were supposed to have. His jump from reformed Lex Luthor back to bad guy Lex Luthor was so sudden and so fast that I didn't really feel it. So, if Lex Luthor is gonna be the feature kind of like candidate to complete Justice League's Trinity, I'm really looking forward to how they are gonna explain it. I hope they go back a little bit to the whole story arc of reformed Lex Luthor when she lost his memory and whatever, and see how they develop that. The fact that the Justice League was becoming this, like, it wasn't like free for all, but like they were welcoming so much more members, and kind of like thinking about reformation and thinking about, you know, kind of like what they did in the last story arc of the West Coast Avengers, which was great. The whole idea of reforming bad guys. Let's see what happens. It's called Amnesty. It features Lex Luthor. It looks interesting, and of course this is gonna be one of the principal stories or books where we're gonna see the fallout of This Is KO. So this one is a must. Next, speaking of This Is KO, apparently the whole reign of the Superboys was attached directly to Superboy Prime. It's so funny that the name of the story arc is Superboy Primetime, and he is featured in the main Superman book. As I said, without spoiling, all we can say about the ending of This Is KO was the disappearance of Superman. And isn't it so curious, funny, and in a way sort of morbid to see Prime taking like the role of Superman? We're gonna have a bunch of discussions, evidently, since we saw last Lois putting Prime under the care of the Kents, and we have at the same time we have all of the other Superboys, and we have all of the other Super Family, and the fact that Prime is in the middle. He had the blessing from Superman himself, so it's gonna be really funny to see how they portray the role of Prime against the rest of the Super Family, and under the fact that Superman is gone. It's gonna be super interesting. Again, and then we have another Dan Mora here, right? He's kind of like too hot, maybe. that could be a chance. But if Justice League was one of the main parts of the DC universe where we were gonna follow and feel the fallout of This Is KO, this is the second, like, most important part. the Superman books, of course. It's Superman who is gone, and they've been teasing the reign of Superboys a lot. I'm not quite sure if I've read ever. Let me see. Let me quickly see the last things that I got in from DC. Whoa, this is March. Did I get one? No. The last week I have what? This is KO 5, so I haven't read the Reign of the Superboys. I haven't dipped into the story. So we'll see. We'll see how that develops. Next. This is undoubtedly the comic of the week. The next Marvel DC crossover after my own. Well, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't really enjoy Batman Deadpool because, Deadpool, whatever. But now we have Superman and Spider-Man, and it's led by a bunch of names. I haven't read them. Mark Waid, Tom King, Matt Fraction, Sean Murphy, Gail Simone, Christopher Priest, Greg Rucka, and Jeff Lemire. And dude, look at those names. Those names are gonna write about the stories in this crossover. This crossover, it was so funny because they said they're gonna focus on the main story is gonna be them as reporters, not as Superman and Spider-Man, but as reporters. One of the big discussions you could have when you think about crossovers, especially between Marvel and DC, is like, who is this company's what, right? Who is Marvel's Superman? Who is DC's Spider-Man? You can always get into interesting discussions there. And Superman being this ethos-filled, unmovable values, like immovable object. Is that Spider-Man for Marvel? In a way, right? In a way, if you read the last Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man was in space and he came back, and he started to rebuild his social connections, because everybody that replaced Peter while he was out in space went their own way. They did their own thing, so they kind of left a little bit of a mess throughout Peter's social life. So in the end, what really happened is that he comes back to Aunt May, and Aunt May, of course, they have a fallout before that, even before he left. So he comes back, and Aunt May goes like, I know you, Peter. Like, I know you, so it's okay. There's more layers to it, but I don't want to completely spoil it. But what that means is that she's recognizing the core of Spider-Man, and that is one of the things that we always sort of recognize in the character: his unmovable values and personality, which are pretty similar to Superman. They have connections in the way they feel about things like justice and compromise, like personal dedication, which is not something you can do with many characters in both companies. You would think that that Superman could hang out with Captain America for example, but they have subtleties in between them that make them a little bit incompatible. But I think with Spider-Man they can bond over that, over principles that go beyond like country or something. And I don't know, it looks super interesting that they're gonna focus the story from the journalist point of view, especially because Spider-Man has rarely been a journalist in general. He's mostly a scientist always. But anyways, I didn't really enjoy Batman Deadpool. It was too much fan service and too much nonsense, and it didn't really did justice to any of those characters was Deadpool is a rando, so that's not that important. But these characters have much more subtleties. They are much more lovable. They are much more pure. So let's see how they do it, and at least we're gonna get a fun story out of it, because we already know this is no amalgam situation or anything. This is not some world-shattering crossover. This is just supposed to be a really like heartfelt, emotional story that taps into the character's ethos, as I said. Next and last, I want to be positive, and this is another character that I've never been a fan of, but Ryan North, who we mentioned by his attachment to Fantastic Four and the Crypto book, that has been okay. I like the offering of a new storyline, and as they say, as a new era that brings the lightheartedness that Ryan North gives some of his characters. He's really good at giving heart and emotion to characters. As I said before, the Flash, I feel he's always been a victim of being the Flash. So every storyline is about multiverse, time travel, blah blah blah, very big stuff, and it gets old. Let's bring it back to characters. Let's bring it back to family. Even though they talk about his his growing family now, he has a daughter and a son, right? And they both have powers, and they already have made stories of them in a multiversal sense, time traveling. Already the kids have already gone through all of that. So let's bring it back to basics. And I think Ryan North can pull it out. Pull it off. I think pull it out means something different. So, as someone who is not the biggest Flash fan, I'm looking forward for a new storyline. This is what I like when they do these jumping points. And as I said before, I think just last week, DC has done this better than Marvel most times. Like all of these new storylines properly tagged, properly highlighted, just after the event, like new authors, new buys for the characters, even new looks. The latest Flash suit wasn't that good. Of course, they went back already to the classic. So the offer is super well made, which makes this an interesting, great book to get in, even if you are not the biggest fan of the Flash as I am. Every element is perfect to offer something fresh, something new, and something that could put a character that you don't like that much under a new light, possibly making it more enjoyable for you and everyone else. And that's another week of comic books. DC has taken over my episodes lately because KO was just that good of an event. The way they made the event bleed to the other titles, the way they made it to affect the other heroes, like, it's just great. And as I said, the timing is perfect. I love that. KO is ending. Here are the new stories. Here are the new writers. This story, let's highlight immediately what this new story is about. They done an amazing job in that sense, in the sense of publishing new stories as a publisher. The publisher, that should be a character. So a lot of cool things to look for this week, just as they did last week, and which, as I said, I haven't gone through yet. So let's see what. Sorry, I thought I got a weird message. Let's see what happens from this week, from past week to this week and beyond. It's just March, Am I aware of the next events they're going? Oh yeah, Armageddon in Marvel. In DC, one of the things that I can say, I think. No, I won't say it. Go read This is KO5. I won't say it. I won't say it. So, thank you for listening. Keep on reading, enjoying the fantasy we all shared, and we'll see each other next week. Take care. Bye bye.